Hello everyone, my name is WillyMammoth and welcome back to another video. Today's video might be a little different than my usual format, and it's certainly my most ambitious video to date. By now I'm pretty sure all of you have at least heard of an iceberg, but if you don't know, an iceberg is a chart about a certain topic where the most well-known and accessible topics are at the top, but as you descend the chart, they get more and more obscure. One particular type of iceberg video that's been floating around is the childhood trauma iceberg, which details many things that scared people my age as kids. My video today is not on that iceberg. I actually made my own. I went and made my own personal childhood trauma iceberg, that is, things that specifically scared me as a kid. I thought this would be an interesting idea for a video, so here we go. Before we begin, today's video is going to be a long one, so please, use the bathroom, grab some snacks, and get your drink of choice. Put those feet up and get ready for an exciting and scary video. Creepypastas. Creepypastas are horror stories that have been shared around the internet. The term creepypasta comes from the word copypasta, which in turn comes from copy and paste. There are thousands upon thousands of creepypastas on the internet, but only a select few are genuinely scary. Some notable examples are stories like Ted the Caver, Candle Cove, and Smile Dog. I spent much of my youth listening to creepypasta narrations on YouTube, and I lost countless hours of sleep because of them. Slender Man. Slender Man is a creepypasta character that was first created on the Something Awful forum. Slender Man is an incredibly tall humanoid who wears a black suit and sprouts many tentacles from his back. Slender Man is known to stalk and harass his victims before killing them. One of the scariest aspects of Slender Man is not necessarily his story, but his appearance. Slender Man does not have any facial features. Instead, it is just stark white. His uncanny appearance unnerves many people, especially since there are many Photoshop pictures of him blending into crowds of people. As a kid, I would watch supposed Slender Man sightings on YouTube, and one of the most terrifying was a 911 call of a little girl who saw Slender Man outside of her house. The audio was absolutely terrifying, and I still have a hard time listening to it. I'm not going to play it, but feel free to look it up if you want. I remember being petrified of Slender Man, so much so that I would refuse to look out of my windows at night. One time I even thought I saw Slender Man, but it was just a bag hanging in a tree. Horror Let's Plays. Gaming channels hit their peak back in 2012 to 2013. People like PewDiePie and Markiplier were gaining thousands of subscribers daily, and gaming was on the front page of YouTube. Lots of these YouTubers began to do horror game Let's Plays, where they would play horror games and record their hilarious reactions.
Ah! I'm a baby! I'm a big baby! I want my mommy!
However, these Let's Plays also introduced lots of kids to some genuinely scary and oftentimes disturbing horror games, like Penumbra, Amnesia, and Cry of Fear, which is actually an entry later in this iceberg. GTA Myths and Legends. Something that is both terrifying and nostalgic for me are the myths and legends surrounding the Grand Theft Auto series. There were many videos on YouTube showing people encountering UFOs and Bigfoot in games like San Andreas, and I was just really fascinated by them. When GTA 5 came out, Rockstar capitalized on it by adding ghosts, UFOs, and even a Bigfoot side mission. Being such a huge GTA fan even as a kid, I love these videos, and the fact that Rockstar put some of them in their games. Lavender Town. One of the most infamous creepypastas is the Lavender Town Syndrome. Lavender Town Syndrome refers to a supposed incident in which a large number of Japanese children were hospitalized after playing the original Pokemon games. Lavender Town is a location where the player must go, and anyone who has played the game will tell you it is one of the creepiest locations in gaming history. As the story goes, the creepy Lavender Town theme that plays features tones that only the undeveloped ears of children can hear, and it supposedly causes extreme headaches and even negative thoughts. I remember when I was like 10 or 11, I watched someone play through Pokemon, and when they got to Lavender Town, I got really nauseous and I had a bad headache for a few hours after watching the video. That experience definitely helped to cement this creepypasta in reality, at least for the time. Obviously the whole Lavender Town incident is fake, but as a kid, your mind doesn't really realize that. Urban legends. Everybody knows at least a few urban legends that scared them as kids, whether it is region-specific, like the Bunnyman Bridge, or it's something like the Candyman ritual. Everyone at least has one that freaked them out. For me, it was the Bloody Mary ritual. I remember browsing the web when I was maybe 8 or 9 and stumbling across some creepy stories forum where someone posted the legend of Bloody Mary. Ever since then, the urban legend stuck with me, and it's always something that's in the back of my mind when I'm using the bathroom late at night. I've never actually done the ritual before, and I don't plan to, even though it's obviously fake. Japanese tsunami video. Back in 2005, when YouTube had just come out, my dad and I would watch creepy videos on the site together on our crappy family computer. This is something we would do often, and for many years, as we both had a lot of fun with it. One in particular was of the tsunami that ravaged Japan sometime in the early 2000s. I can't find the exact date. The video is normal at first, showing damage of the tsunami, but at one point in the video, a strange white creature is seen jumping out of the water. It kinda reminds me of some sort of water spirit. Japanese folklore is very rich, and I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of spiritual explanation for this video. Unfortunately, it looks like the original video was taken down, but you can still find some re-uploads on YouTube. Marble Hornets. Marble Hornets was one of the first popular ARGs to hit the internet. I remember it being incredibly popular back then. It was a series of videos about a man's encounter with Slender Man. Throughout his videos, the viewer often sees Slender Man or evidence of him in the background, and in some videos he even gets attacked by the monster. I remember being invested in this series as a kid, and it definitely freaked me out many times. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared is a series of videos featuring a group of puppets that at first seem to be doing something mundane. But as the video progresses, it shifts to a more darker tone, and the puppets deal with more adult and disturbing concepts like time and death. The visuals in these videos were pretty disturbing, especially as a kid. The creators would often use props like raw meat, and I remember being especially disgusted by that. Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider on the PS1 was one of the first games I ever played, and it still remains one of my favorites. While not inherently a horror game, the series is known for creepy locales and enemies. In particular, the very first game has the player be attacked by packs of wolves, angry bears, dinosaurs, and even mutant Atlanteans, which I covered in a previous video, the top 10 scariest enemies in non-horror video games. There will be a link to that video in the description if you want to watch it. I still get anxious when I play any Tomb Raider game because of my experiences playing it as a kid. I was also really terrified of the water levels because of my thalassophobia, which I will also be covering later in this Iceberg. Smile Dog. Smile Dog is one of the most infamous creepypastas of all time. I did an in-depth analysis of it in my top 10 scariest creepypastas video, which I will also link down in the description. But to summarize the story, the photo of Smile Dog is supposedly cursed. When you view the photo, Smile Dog will come to you in your dreams every night and demand that you spread the word. The photos are incredibly uncanny, and I remember being terrified of them as a kid. They still are a little jarring to this day. Thalassophobia. Thalassophobia is the fear of deep bodies of water, and it is one of my biggest phobias. I am absolutely petrified of deep or open water. I can't stand not being able to see what is beneath the waves, and the fact that creatures as huge as the blue whale can exist really frightens me. Stories of sea monsters have always fascinated me, and they have definitely helped in giving me this phobia. I'll go on beaches, but I won't go more than knee-deep into open water, and I won't go on boats or piers. I've been in creeks and streams before though, those are pretty fun, but only because they are no more than knee-deep and you can see the bottom. I've been in lakes before too, and let me tell you, I hated it. I've been on a few boats before as well. In one instance, I rode a ferry across Lake Champlain, which is said to be home to America's own Loch Ness Monster. That was an exhilarating yet frightening experience. I remember peering over the side of the boat into the murky water, looking for any sign of the beast. And you know, for a guy who has thalassophobia, I am cursed with the love of fishing. I do love me some good fishing.
Beautiful. And what exactly are you? A sturgeon? I think so.
Insects. I am also deathly afraid of insects and bugs. I have had many horrible experiences with these animals, and I just cannot stand to be around them. When I see certain insects, my fight or flight response kicks in, and I get really anxious. This phobia is one of the reasons why I always hated playing outside as a kid. But sadly, even if you avoid the outdoors, these critters will find a way to come to you. Such is the case of the Great Beetle Battle of 2015, a story which I tell my friends when we swap scary stories. This was the summer before middle school started. I was chilling in my room one hot summer day with my air conditioner going. I had just finished lunch and was watching some YouTube videos when I heard what sounded like a weed whacker hitting the side of the house. I assumed it was one of our neighbors accidentally hitting their siding until I looked over at the AC and saw a giant black shape fall from it. The air conditioner stopped functioning at this point, and I got up to investigate. Laying on the floor was a giant black insect, which I assumed was some sort of beetle or maybe a cicada that woke up too early. The thing was huge, like abnormally huge for those types of bugs. I wish I had a picture to show you guys because I've never seen anything like it since. Well, it must have damaged its wings in the AC because it couldn't fly anymore. Instead, it crawled meekly on the ground toward me and hissed. I swear to God it was so loud, my mother heard it from downstairs. My mother and my grandfather, who happened to be visiting, came upstairs. The bug was nowhere to be found, and I reluctantly sat back in my chair. About 3 minutes goes by, Then I hear a loud hiss from behind me. The bug had crawled under my bed and was using its legs to feel around and poke its head out at me. My grandfather came back and hit it a bunch of times with an electric fly swatter, but to no avail. The thing was still alive. He put the bug in a jar and let it free in the woods. That event traumatized me like you wouldn't believe. To this day, I jump when I hear loud buzzing noises like that bug made. I hate bugs so much. I hate them.
I hate them!
Sci-Fi Channel. The Sci-Fi Channel is a cable TV channel that plays horror movies and shows. I used to watch the Sci-Fi Channel with my dad all the time. The channel helped grow my love of the horror genre, but it also introduced me to some very disturbing content. Most of the movies it showed were crappy B movies, but it would often play great films such as Saw or The Descent. Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park is one of my all-time favorite movies, but that wasn't always the case. When I was very little, I'm talking like 4 or 5, I was absolutely terrified of the movie. I would chicken out after the first few minutes, mainly because of the opening title card which played this ominous music. Thankfully I got over this fear, and I love the movie to this day. Goosebumps. Goosebumps was my jam. It was the perfect series for kids like me who loved horror but didn't or couldn't watch adult horror films. I used to have a huge collection of the books, and my mom would read them to me all the time. I loved the show, too. It brought R.L. Stine's creepy visuals to life, even if it was in a more goofy way. One episode in particular that scared the hell out of me was called How to Kill a Monster. In that episode, 2 kids go to stay with their grandparents in the swamp. The grandfather has a locked door upstairs, which he warns the kids not to enter under any circumstance. The grandparents end up going to town for a few days, and the kids break in, only to unleash an incredibly nightmarish creature that tries to kill them. Eventually, they defeat the monster and run outside into the swamp, only to realize that there are more of them outside. That ending is something straight out of an actual horror movie, and I love it. That episode and others like it scared me a lot as a kid. Horror movie covers. Horror movie covers refers to the box art that would be on DVDs of horror movies. Some in particular that scared me were that for The Crazies and Feast. I remember seeing these in my local video store and being creeped out by them. There are lots of creepy horror movie covers, so let me know down in the comments about which one scared you. Lost Tapes. Lost Tapes was a mockumentary series released on Animal Planet in 2008. The show was about supposed lost footage of people's encounters with cryptids. I'm a huge fan of this show now, but let me tell you, it was terrifying as a kid. The show would only ever air early in the morning, like 4 to 6 a.m. early. Let's do a little experiment, guys. Imagine being a kid, maybe 9, 10, 11, and waking up for school. It's 4:55 a.m. and it's still dark outside. You creep down into the pitch black living room and turn on the TV. You switch it to the Animal Planet channel, and you're greeted with this haunting intro.
There are creatures science refuses to recognize. But new technology makes us question what is real. If our eyes see it,
Come on!
if our cameras capture it, does it exist? Enter a realm where fact meets fiction, science meets legend, where nightmares come to life.
Oh my God!
Do you believe? Lost Tapes.
This show undoubtedly scared many other kids like me. A few episodes that really freaked me out in particular were The Vampire, Cave Demons, and The Monster of Monterey. I highly recommend you check out this show if you're interested. It may be a little goofy by today's standards, but this show is the pinnacle of TV found footage horror. I actually have season 2 on DVD in my film collection, and I hope to get the rest of the series too. I'd love to do a full video talking about Lost Tapes as a show, so let me know if you want to see that as well. Monster Quest. Monster Quest was a slightly tamer version of Lost Tapes. Monster Quest was a History Channel show that was about professionals trying to find cryptids in the wild. It had some pretty creepy visuals at times, but overall it wasn't nearly as scary as Lost Tapes was. Monster Quest delved more into the science behind whether certain creatures could actually exist, so if you're into that, do check it out. Saw 2. Saw 2 is one of my favorite horror movies, and it was the first Saw movie I ever watched. The movie itself didn't really bother me as a kid, but the part when this dude throws Amanda into the pit of needles terrified me. I am in no way scared of needles, but the fact that someone could just hurt someone like that really messed me up. The other traps in the film didn't bother me, because most of the time, it was just the dumb decisions of the characters that led them to being in the trap in the first place. Adult Swim. Adult Swim is a program that I know a lot of other people my age were terrified of as kids. Adult Swim would air on the Cartoon Network at around 10 p.m., just after showing a kids show. The whole tone of the station would shift, and it really creeped out a lot of kids. I remember when I used to fall asleep watching Cartoon Network and wake up at like 3 a.m. to see Robot Chicken on my TV. Definitely something that would have scarred any child. Family Guy. Family Guy is a show known for its crude and oftentimes downright offensive humor. As a kid, I was told explicitly that I wasn't allowed to watch it, but I did enjoy shows like The Simpsons and King of the Hill. The second that The Simpsons would end, Family Guy would start to play, and I would leave the room scared. The opening intro where the Griffins do their little song and dance always scared me, because it symbolized something forbidden for me. As an adult, I don't really like the show, but I often find myself watching funny Family Guy clips on TikTok. Lost episodes. Lost episodes are a subgenre of creepypastas. A lost episode is an episode of a TV show, often a cartoon, that deviates drastically from the show's tone. Some notable examples would be Red Mist or Dead Bart. Dead Bart in particular always scared me, and still does to this day. I absolutely hate that picture of Bart's burning face. It's been seared into my mind for the past 7 or 8 years now, and I hate it. Lost episode creepypastas take something fun and enjoyable and turn it into something disturbing. Whether that's a good thing is up to the story's author. Username 666. Username 666 is an infamous YouTube video. The video shows someone refreshing a YouTube page a bunch of times until the screen begins to turn red and disturbing visuals start to play. The video is still on YouTube, and I highly recommend you watch it if you haven't already. The person who made it is extremely talented, and they actually made a new video recently that you should also check out. Cry of Fear. Cry of Fear is a Half-Life mod, and is without a doubt one of the scariest games ever made. I remember watching PewDiePie's Let's Play of it back in the day, and it petrified me. To this day, I can't play the game for too long. I get so anxious when I see gameplay or I try to play it myself. I will say, however, that it is an incredible game, and it's free, so go play it if you haven't already. The game really was inspired by Silent Hill, so if you are into Silent Hill, you'll probably like Cry of Fear. Resident Evil 4. Resident Evil 4 was the first Resident Evil game I have ever played. As some of you guys know, I am a huge Resident Evil fan, and I love this series to death. I've never beaten RE4, however. Not because it's too scary, but because I just never have the time to do it. But as a kid playing it for the first time, the game scared the hell out of me. Maybe it was the creepy soundtrack and enemies, or maybe it was the overall tone of the story. I still maintain the opinion that it is one of the scariest games I have ever played, and it's given me the chronic fear of chainsaw-wielding enemies in games, because let's face it guys, these things are scary. Tat's Top Videos. Tat's Top Videos is an old and incredibly talented YouTube channel. They make top 10 videos about all sorts of topics, but they are perhaps most well known for their creepypasta videos. Tat's videos always start with a creepy warning message that goes a little something like this.
This video contains flashing lights, unsettling content, violent content, jump scares, pop-ups and sudden loud noises. It is also not suitable for viewers who suffer from cyberphobia and aviophobia. Viewer discretion advised.
If that isn't enough, the segments between each entry and the topics they talk about should be enough to make you at least a bit unnerved. I remember watching this channel when I was younger, and I'm glad to see they're still making content to this day. Spyro Year of the Dragon. Spyro Year of the Dragon is one of my all-time favorite games. In a game meant for kids, you might not expect it to be too creepy, but for me, this game had a lot of creepy moments. I hated the water sections, as I do with most games, and I was creeped out by the levels that are in pure darkness like this. Some of the boss fights in the game are pretty creepy too, like this one. There's just something about the PS1 graphics that really make games scary. SCP. The SCP Wiki is a compendium of thousands of stories about anomalies contained within the fictional SCP Foundation. SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect, which is the mission statement of the Foundation. Many SCPs are harmless and oftentimes helpful, but quite a few are downright disturbing, like SCP-939, which refers to a group of pack-based, blood-red predators that mimic human voices. If you've never explored the SCP Wiki before, you really should. I want to make a video on it someday, so leave a like if you want to see that. SCP Containment Breach is a video game about the SCP Foundation, and it's very scary as well. Pokemon Creepypastas. There are tons of Pokemon creepypastas out there, and most of them are unfortunately really bad. But the disturbing visuals and the perversion of something that is supposed to be fun and kid-friendly really creeped me out as a kid. Seeing beloved Pokemon dead or trying to harm the player was something that I'm sure scared a lot of people. Some notable Pokemon creepypastas are Snow on Mount Silver and Pokemon Creepy Black, so check them out if you haven't already. Jolly Roger Bay. I covered Jolly Roger Bay in my top 10 video, which I mentioned before, so check the description for the link to that. Jolly Roger Bay is a level in Super Mario 64, and most of the level is entirely underwater. The game forces the player to dive down to a sunken pirate ship, where a giant terrifying eel pops out at the player. This level absolutely terrified me as a kid, and certainly didn't help with my thalassophobia. Saints Row 3. Saints Row 3 is a very fun and hilarious game. However, beneath the game's bright surface lies some pretty creepy elements. I used to watch Saints Row Myths and Legends on YouTube, just like I did with GTA. One that always creeped me out was the myth about the mermaid, which said that a mermaid could attack the player if they went into the water around Steelport. Another thing about the game that creeped me out was the giant bunny Easter egg. Yeah, I have no idea why this is in the game. I know it was in Saints Row 2, but it's just so out of place that it feels really creepy. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark really needs no introduction, but I'll do it anyway. It was a series of books with creepy stories that had hand-drawn, disturbing pictures of monsters and ghouls. These books scared a lot of kids, including me. I still have my copy of the book somewhere, and I'm glad to see that they're still getting love today. Call of Duty Zombies. I love Call of Duty Zombies. There's nothing more fun than hopping on maps like Keynote or Toten with a few friends and just mindlessly fighting zombies for hours. However, as a kid, first playing World at War and beating the campaign, I was completely shocked to see the game had a zombies mode. The intro cutscene is very creepy, and when the player loads into Nacht der Untoten, you are placed in an isolated German building. I think what really made World at War Zombies and Black Ops 1 Zombies so scary in particular was a combination of the Nazi imagery and the overall dark tone of the series. There really was this mysterious and creepy aura around the first two Zombies games that just hasn't been recreated since. Corpse Party. Corpse Party is an anime-style JRPG which has the player locked in a haunted school with some classmates. The player and the other characters can die very gruesome deaths, and it definitely freaked me out as a kid when I played the game. 2012. 2012, the year the world was supposed to end. I remember counting the days down until December 2012, when the Mayan calendar supposedly said the world would end. I remember at the time I was playing Dead Rising 2 for the first time, and I stayed up all night before to beat it, even though it was a school night. I came downstairs sleep deprived and saw the morning news on the TV. Everyone was rejoicing that the world did not end, and even more people were calling us stupid for believing it. Well, my excuse was that I was a kid. What's yours? Area 51. Area 51 was a game for the PS2. The player is a soldier and must enter Area 51 to combat an alien containment breach. In the first level, the player enters a dark room, when all of a sudden the lights shut off and the aliens come out of the darkness to attack you. I never did make it past that level because the game scared me so much. Bermuda Triangle Mysteries. There are tons of mysteries surrounding the Bermuda Triangle, whether it be wormholes that send planes to other dimensions, giant sea monsters that are so big that they pull ships down with ease, or ghost ships that lure sailors to their demise. There is no shortage of creepy legends about this area of the world. I was, and still am, pretty fascinated by these legends, and it really added to the overall fear that I have about the ocean. Splashdown, Rides Gone Wild. Splashdown, Rides Gone Wild was another game for the PS2. It was essentially just a jet ski racing game, but it was actually pretty fun. It's no surprise to anyone, I'm sure, that the reason that this game scared me was the water. Something about the low-quality graphics of the PS2 always made water in games extra scary for me. Not to mention that if the player tries to go out of bounds in the Splashdown games, that the Kraken will reach up a tentacle and pull you down. Like seriously, we didn't need to see that, guys. Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is one of the greatest bands of all time, and that's a fact. I have always loved their music, but some of their album covers freaked me out as a kid. Mob Rules, which came out in 1981, really creeped me out. I mean, look at that. What's going on here? Another creepy one is the album simply titled Black Sabbath, which came out in 1970. I highly recommend you give this band a listen if you never have. Evil Dead Regeneration. Evil Dead Regeneration was the first horror-themed video game I have ever played. While not explicitly a horror game, it has some dark themes that would be creepy to any child. The game is incredibly fun and hilarious at times, and I highly recommend you check it out on an emulator if you can. The asylum level at the beginning of the game was a little creepy to me, since deadites jump out at you from dark hallways and from behind closed doors. Golden Axe. For those of you who don't know, the Sega Genesis was the first console I ever owned. I played games like Sonic the Hedgehog, Streets of Rage, and Gain Ground. Another game I played was Golden Axe. Golden Axe is one of my all-time favorite games, and I still enjoy it to this day. It is a side-scrolling beat-em-up, much like Streets of Rage, but it takes place in a medieval fantasy world. The game's beautiful soundtrack can be a bit ominous at times, and some of the creatures are a little creepy. The game's story was also pretty creepy to me. Your character is the last chance that humanity has of stopping Death Adder, a being which seeks to destroy all life. As you fight through forests and deserts, you will often arrive at villages. In these villages, civilians run towards you, giving blood-curdling screams as they flee from Death Adder's horde of minions. Altered Beast is another Sega game that I had. I never liked playing it though, because it was too scary for me. You play as a man who can transform into a werewolf as you fight monsters. The transformation sequence was utterly terrifying to me as a kid, and it kinda grossed me out too. I revisited the game for the first time recently, and it's actually pretty decent. The sun will swallow the earth. The sun will swallow the earth refers to the fact that in a million or so years, the sun will grow so large that its gravitational pull will become so strong that Mercury, Venus, and Earth will be sucked into the sun. When I was first told this as a kid, I cried my eyes out. With my child brain, I couldn't comprehend what it would be like to not exist anymore. As a kid and even now, it's incredibly frustrating and anxiety-inducing to know that eventually Earth will be destroyed and no evidence of us will be left behind. Tens of thousands of years of human evolution for nothing. All the beautiful animals and landscapes on the planet will be gone forever, and that is incredibly sad and terrifying to me. Garfield's Scary Tales. Garfield's Scary Tales was a book revolving around the titular cat and his pals in a series of scary stories for kids. I was petrified of this book as a kid due to its jarring visuals and creepy stories. I would refuse to even go near the book sometimes because it frightened me that badly. Live-action Scooby-Doo. The first live-action Scooby-Doo movie was really scary to me. From the uncanny ghost in the beginning of the film to the monsters that the gang have to face in the jungle, it really is far from a kid's movie. This movie undoubtedly scared a lot of other kids too. The second movie, however, is my personal favorite, but I do love both of them nowadays. Tales from the Dark Side. Tales from the Dark Side was a show kind of like The Twilight Zone. Each episode had new characters that would encounter some supernatural event or entity, and the show had some really disturbing moments. The show's intro was incredibly scary to me. Seeing a bright and vibrant landscape turn black while the creepy music plays always freaked me out.
Man lives in the sunlit world of what he believes to be reality. But there is, unseen by most, an underworld, a place that is just as real, but not as brightly lit. A dark side.
There were two episodes in particular that really messed me up. The first one is called Inside the Closet. The episode revolves around a young girl staying in a rented room, where she encounters a terrifying rat or monkey thing in the closet. I mean, look at that thing. That's terrifying. What is that? What the hell is that? Another episode called Hush was about a very smart boy who makes a robot that is able to silence toys and radios by sucking the life out of them. The robot goes on to kill the boy's mother and dog. Yeah, that episode kind of scarred me for life too. What happens after death? What happens after death has always been frightening to me. Is there an afterlife? Or is it just blank nothingness? The fact that nobody knows for sure horrifies me. I have always struggled with religion, so I can't latch onto the idea of there being something like heaven or hell. I didn't grow up in an overly religious household, but I was always given the notion that God is real, so I went along with it. And even if there is a heaven or hell, which God should I be praying to? There's no way to tell. But I think what's even scarier is the idea that there is simply nothing after death. People always say that sounds peaceful, but to me, that sounds like a nightmare. I remember asking my mom what happens after we die when I was really little, and she didn't give me a straight answer. Ever since then, the question has haunted me, and I am not ashamed to admit I have had 1 or 2 panic attacks over it. Ed, Edd n Eddy Alien episode.
Giant blades will fall, slicing through the earth like a deep dish flan! It's the end of humanity!
The Eds Are Coming was an episode of the awesome show Ed, Edd n Eddy, which aired on Cartoon Network from 1999 to 2009. I remember watching the episode the day it came out. It was hyped up for weeks on the station. The episode itself was actually a half-hour special, too. The episode revolves around the characters thinking that aliens are coming to Earth to abduct them. We see mass hysteria spread through the cul-de-sac as the kids try to prepare for the coming of the aliens. Some of the shots in this episode are really unnerving, and kind of remind me of the cinematography from John Carpenter's The Thing. At the end of the episode, the cul-de-sac is abducted and taken into space. This episode was awesome, but also pretty creepy to me. Wormy. SpongeBob is one of the greatest cartoons to ever exist, and for good reason. Each episode offers new jokes and laughs that really engage with the audience. Well, at least the first few seasons were like that. Speaking of the first few seasons, there is an episode called Wormy, in which SpongeBob and Patrick have to take care of Sandy's pet caterpillar. The caterpillar enters a cocoon and metamorphosizes into a butterfly. This would normally be a very beautiful scene, if not for the fact that this happens.
What is that thing?
This episode definitely scarred a lot of other kids, and it helped me to develop my fear of insects. Steel Harbinger. Steel Harbinger is a top-down shooter for the PS1. You play as a half-alien woman who has to defend America from aliens. The enemies in this game are grotesque and terrifying, and I can't believe I played this game as a kid. The only reason I still remember this game is because of the creepy level design with the destroyed cities and because of the disturbing monsters. Tak and the Great Juju Challenge. Tak and the Great Juju Challenge is one of my favorite games. I used to play it all the time with my dad. It was so much fun. However, one of the levels sees player 2 as Locke dress up in a lobster suit and dive into pitch black water. This level always terrified me. I hated watching my dad descend into the murky depths while I waited on shore. Thank God I was always player 1 though. The Mist. The Mist is one of the greatest horror movies ever made. It is based on a Stephen King novel of the same name, and it is about a rural Maine town being engulfed by a strange mist. Horrifying creatures inhabit the mist and begin to prey on the townsfolk. Now, I'm going to spoil the story and ending of the movie, but I highly recommend you watch it before you hear this next part. So there's going to be a timestamp on screen of where you can skip to if you don't want to be spoiled. The main character takes refuge in a supermarket with some other citizens and his son, and we see how a situation like this changes normally good people. A religious whack job convinces the others to start sacrificing people to the monsters, and many people die in the conflict. Eventually, the main character escapes with a few other survivors in a truck. The truck breaks down in the fog, and the main character reluctantly shoots the other people, including his own son, so they don't have to be killed by the monsters. Not having any bullets left, the main character starts to cry and accept his fate. A few moments later, the fog begins to disperse as the military arrives. This is one of the greatest horror movie endings in history, but also one of the bleakest. I remember watching this movie as a kid, and it really messed me up. This is kind of a bonus entry because I never watched the Justice League animated show as a kid, because back then I thought superheroes were dumb. Now, as an adult who loves DC and Marvel, I've gone back and watched the Justice League show, and I have to say, I really regret changing the channel every time the show came on. It really is one of the best cartoons I've ever watched. That being said though, the premiere episode of Justice League was very disturbing. Shape-shifting aliens come to Earth, and it's up to heroes like Superman and Batman to stop them. These aliens wiped out all life on Mars previously, so their bloodthirsty backstory adds to the disturbing factor. One of the aliens takes the form of a dog and attacks Batman in a really creepy scene. And all throughout the episode, Superman gets hit with these jump scare hallucinations. I know for a fact that if I watched this as a kid, I would have never been the same. Alright, that does it for today's video, guys. I want to thank each and every single one of you for watching this video. Please like the video if you want to see more, and comment down below what other types of videos you want to see me make. Remember to subscribe and hit that notification bell for more videos, and be sure to check out my other videos. As always, I'll see you in my next video. Goodbye.